Hello, my name is McNee and I have been campaigning for 39 years on something very simple that went wrong over 50 years ago. Day after day we see headlines of the failure of our teaching and our education system. And if the foundation is flawed, this affects the whole edifice of education. We are told that education is woeful. That's the head of Tesco. And then other people have the same problems. It's been controlled by people who tell you that they are qualified professionals. If all the professionals were wrong, the whole country would be in a mess. The whole country is in a mess because the professionals have got it wrong and they have the power to protect their beliefs. The central government, training of teachers and the local education authorities are the three prongs of this attack on success. It is so simple that any ordinary mum or dad can get it right. In Suffolk, in the 1970s, Sue Lloyd raised her achievement for about 8 years. Every year it went up and up and up. In a sane world, Suffolk Education Authority would have picked up on this and spread it through the county to lead the whole country. It didn't happen. In next door neighbouring Norfolk, my councillor, my MP, was Gillian Shepherd. She was a councillor, she was a chairman of the Education Committee, she was an MP, and she wrote to the top, the Secretary of State, and she never came to see me. I kept writing to her, and she wouldn't listen, and they could have got it right. I came to Knowsley in 1994 with the dream of having the bottom LEA rise and rise to near the top and lead the country back. And in 94, one head teacher believed me, and when he allowed my teaching in his school, the results were fantastic. The teacher of year 1 used my way and taught. The result was 115.9, and she stayed with the children, and for year 2 at the end of the year the achievement was 119. This is outstanding, remarkable. It's so good that the BBC featured it in a programme called Just One Chance. Again, you would think that the local authority would pick on it and make their name. But it didn't happen. Why did that teacher stop the teaching that was so remarkably good? 2 years later, when the national curriculum came in, I taught reception class. And my achievement was 116, and the national average is 100, average reading quotient. And not one child in my class had a reading age below chronological age. This was the bottom school in the bottom LEA. Surely the council should have picked on it. But always the councillors trust the LEA, and the LEA keep saying that they are doing fine, they can do as well as they could. It is just not true. When you see that 1 year the class is 102, and then it rises to 116, and then it drops to 101, it cannot be denied that the wrong teaching is letting the children down. It is unacceptable. Then, in 2006, there was a miracle. Jim Rose and his report said, teach phonics. This cost 2.46 million. It is synthetic phonics, but systematic it is not. It says that the first way to spell the long vowels is like this: A, E, I, O, U. Doesn't that make you cringe, or at least don't you think it's bizarre? Then if you look at IGH, it only says I in about 20 words, after a consonant. After a vowel, it doesn't say A, it says I, 9 words. So what's the good of telling children to learn the spelling of IGH first? It doesn't make sense. This report is so bad that I puzzled and puzzled, it bothered me, and finally I realised that there is a simpler way. You can say that vowels can say their name. The first sound we learned was A, E, O, O. But then the A can say A, as in pastry. E can say E, as in me. But the official book says that me is a tricky word. I, no. Do you think these are tricky words? And you can say its name in usual. Very simple. Learn the simple things first, is that right? And then lead on to more complex spellings. Why not? I met a lady called Professor Alice Coleman about 20 years ago in the House of Lords, and I didn't know her. And I was saying that I had written an explanation, a little booklet, explaining all these things that are wrong. And I'd tried 40 publishers and nobody was interested. And quite out of the blue, she just said, I will rewrite it for you. And we together have spent about 10 years on that. She used to come up to here from London once a month or so, and we would work together. And in 2007, this was published, The Great Reading Disaster. It wasn't reviewed in any major newspaper. Is it any wonder things keep going wrong when they just won't be told? After Letters and Sounds, 2006-7, we then had 2009, another very expensive effort by the government telling teachers what to do. Teachers do far better if they use their common sense. And this is a very long-winded title, Identifying and Teaching Children and Young People with Dyslexia and Literacy Difficulties. Why make it brief? And this says that you need 90 hours of training plus this and that, which is, I am untrained and I've taught hundreds of dyslexics successfully. They would only need very specialist teaching for about 1 in 50 of today's dyslexics. Taught properly, most of them would learn first time. They wouldn't even know it was a problem. But I'm not the only one. Chris Woodhead was the chief inspector, and he did his best. But he said that 15,000 teachers were unfit. and the teacher just got indignant. They should have asked him, why, what's the matter? But this year there was a better phrasing, a better choice of words, that Ofsted said that the teaching, not the teachers, the teaching was wrong. And this changes the attitude, because the teachers work hard, they train to teach, and they trust their professors. I did, until I saw my own son lose 2 vital years from the age of 7 to 9, and that woke me up. But surely people can wake up without that. And Chris Woodhead wrote his book, A Desolation of Learning, and everybody should read that book. He really wants things to come right. I do. I don't want fame. I'm not trying to make money. I just want to see this needless failure put right before I die, and I'm 87, so I don't have that much longer left, I suppose. Most parents can teach their own child. Common sense, and you don't need money. I published my book and I've been keeping it at the minimum price, £5 including postage, by intention that it should not be beyond the pocket of anybody. And it works for any age, 4 to adult, dyslexic or not. We don't have to spend lots of money. When Tony Blair took over in 1997, the money we were spending nationally on education was 30 billion. Goodness knows that's enough. But by this year, it had got as far as 77.7 billion. That's 2.5 times as much. 125 billion on new secondary schools. But they would have far better learning if the intake at 11 plus could read. It is very simple. So, will you persuade your councillor, your MP, to address this simple matter? We don't want received wisdom, because evidently it isn't working. We need good phonics. We need phonics that's there for decoding. If you start with a program that's encoding, you get one spelling for each sound, 44 spellings, and after that you get alternative spellings. And after that, at the very end, you get the spelling rules. If you teach a decoding program, the first part, when you learn one letter, one sound, is about the same. But the difference comes when you teach sounds with 2 letters. And if you teach a decoding program, you then teach the rules as you go along. And it works. In the special thing for here, this for teaching dyslexics, the training is described in words. The pattern of training is complex and difficult to unravel. Why on earth not use something simple? We should be saving. Education should be the #1 place for cuts in these days of austerity. And it's ring-fenced, because the general idea is it depends on money. It doesn't. It depends on teachers, primary teachers, reception class teachers, rethinking the teaching of reading. And if they do, and they get the right teaching and they use games, they will enjoy it. I enjoy my teaching. And the results will rise and the job satisfaction will rise. And I think this will be a key factor in getting our country back out of the gutter. If you want me, you can reach me by typing in Cat Phonics on your internet, or my name, Mona McNee.
Learning to read is the most important milestone in a child's early education. So much of his or her future development depends on it. So, what can you do if your child doesn't learn to read properly? Parents are often told their child will catch up later, but we know that nearly 40% of pupils are still behind in English when they leave primary schools.
The government is now demanding a return to old-fashioned teaching methods, relying heavily on phonics, the k, a, t sounds, which were out of fashion for years. Here's Steve Annett.
Take this magic corn and plant it as soon as you can.
7-year-old Thomas Weldon has struggled to learn to read. Methods that worked for the majority of his classmates left him baffled. He's needed the help of a family friend who's tutored him for the past 2 years. She's taught him using phonics, getting him to sound out words that were unfamiliar, a skill his mother says he hadn't grasped at school.
When he came across a word that he hadn't come across before, he didn't know how to approach it. He didn't seem to know how to break it down. And he would almost, it appeared to me that Thomas was guessing some of the words, and that did concern me, because it's not my idea of learning how to read.
Closed.
Good boy.
How had Thomas been taught when he was at school?
Very much by picture association, guessing, and sounding out perhaps the first letter of the word, and also recognising shapes, which in Thomas's case it wasn't working for him at all. It was failing him quite badly.
This mixture of methods is common to most schools, and it's a system that's failed weaker readers like Thomas. Nationally, more than 20% of 7-year-olds aren't reading to the expected standards, and worried parents like Kathy get the impression that the problem starts in the classroom.
It's a very nice school, it's a very friendly school, there certainly is a happy atmosphere, but I feel it is perhaps a little too relaxed. It's going to take some time before the play practice.
Chemist.
At the heart of the primary school, which boasts big improvements in its reading standards.
We've been learning about magic, haven't we? Here it is.
Although staff at Southmead use a variety of methods, including some that were used at Thomas's school, phonics is centre stage.
Now, what does magic A do to letters?
It is A-E-I-O-U. It's the A-E-I-O.
Does it changes
Group work is supplemented by whole class teaching, with an emphasis on order and discipline.
5 letters. Zoe?
What impressed me was the fact that it was a very disciplined structure. It was organised, the teacher had the children's attention, it was back to basics, but the children were interested and they were learning something from it.
When is Annie Apple?
Ah.
Ah, well done. But when there's some magic on him, he changes from Annie Apple. Who does he change into? Say it again.
The A.
To A. Stuart. Who's
In
this?
pink.
In pink. And what sound does in pink make? That's his sound, but when we've got some magic on, what does he say?
I.
Your son Thomas had been attending a school like this and was taught in the sort of methods you've seen today. How do you think he would have done?
I think Thomas would be reading a lot better than he is. I mean, obviously, as you say, it's hypothetical, so I can only guess. But I think certainly the concentration side he would have found a lot easier. And the fact that they're breaking the words down, yes, I think he would have managed very well.
Southmead proves that social deprivation and poor standards of literacy need not go hand in hand. Local unemployment here runs at more than 50%, with 7 out of 10 of these children getting free school meals. Yet reading standards are high, and parents new to the school are delighted.
My daughter started in year 1 of the infants, and she come home with a reading book, and I couldn't believe it. She could actually read to me, and you know, it was good.
So what was your daughter's reading like 5 months ago, compared to now?
She couldn't read, only very basic words. She wouldn't sound the actual letters of a word. Now, if she's reading and she's stuck on a word, she will actually pronounce the letters and say the word.
Arms down by your side. Hands on heads.